I'm DaniSurname, and I thought I'd do a book review for a book that I read yesterday because it frickin' blew my socks off, and that is More Than This by Patrick Ness. I finished this book, all 481 pages of it, yesterday. I read the whole thing in one day because it was awesome. So I knew of Patrick Ness. I read the Chaos Walking trilogy, which was amazing. I got into it because a friend of mine lent me the first book, and then the two of us went to get the last book together the day it came out, and then didn't speak to each other for hours because we just sat down and read the last book. It's one of those books that I'm like, yeah, that was a defining book in my teenage existence. I know I'm still a teenager, but in my younger teenager existence. And I was talking about Patrick Ness to a friend, and he said, have you read More Than This? And I was like, no. And he was like, you'll really love it. So he lent that to me a couple of months ago, and I only got around to it yesterday. But when I started it, I literally couldn't stop. So the first part of this video will have no spoilers in, which is all good. I'll just tell you about the premise. Basically, it's about a boy called Seth who drowns and then wakes up in kind of an afterlife kind of experience, and he thinks he's in hell, and it's about him kind of struggling along and then reliving parts of his life and just being like, what the fuck is going on? That's as much of the premise that I think I can tell you without giving it away. But the great thing about More Than This is everything in it is so unguessable. There was about 2 things that I saw coming, and then everything else was a surprise. It's like Patrick Ness has written the book, and then at different points in the story, it's like you start to figure out what happens, and then he's gone, nope, and then rip the rug under your feet because, nope. There is no point during the book at which you are on stable ground as to understanding what's going on at all. It's a bit of a whirlwind, and I love it. Okay, so I don't think I can say any more without doing any spoilers, so the book is amazing, go check it out, and leave the video if you don't want to know anything more detailed that happens. And I will say, if you stick around till the end of this video, there aren't going to be a huge amount of spoilers because I do think the book won't work for you if you know too much about what happens. But spoiler cut off. So I love the characters of Regine and Thomas because they were so random and unexpected. I do think parts of the storyline were a little bit unoriginal. I do think that it was very much like The Matrix, which I loved because I love The Matrix, but the whole... Okay, it's like The Matrix. I don't want to specifically say why, in case you go read it. It's still very good. Another part of it that I thought was slightly unoriginal was there's a particular section where Seth, the main character, is in front of a door and he's talking about how the silence feels. And if you've read the Chaos Walking trilogy, then there's a lot of description of silence, which is great, and it's very, very good description, but it felt like I was reading that again. And that's okay, but I was like, Ness, don't repeat yourself. But that didn't go on for a long time. That was just a tiny little bit. The first chapter was a little bit slow. I didn't feel drawn in by Seth's death until it then had significance later on when you then have it replayed. The rest of it is amazing, and I think it is very whirlwindy, and if you can read it in one day, do it. It's very intense if you don't give yourself a break. The way that you get invested in the characters is definitely awesome in this book. It was in the Chaos Walking trilogy, and it is in More Than This. By the time you actually get to find out the backstories of the other characters in the book, you are so invested that it's completely heartbreaking. And again, everything that happens in the book, you think you know where you are, you think you understand, you think you have a few answers, and then nope. The ending, it was so much like Chaos Walking trilogy in a really good way that you just want to know what happened. Tell me. It's like, this feels like an ending, but also it feels like the beginning of something else, and I know I'm never gonna know what the beginning of that thing was. So Ness, well done. I love it, I love it. I don't think I love it as much as the Chaos Walking trilogy, just because that was such a big part of my teenage life. But there was one particular part of this book that really hit me for the time that I'm in right now. The thing about falling in love with books, it always depends on where you are in your life and what you're doing. And there was one line in here that was something about real life is real life, messy. What it means is how you look at it. all you have to do is learn to live in it. And I think that just really hit me, and I love that bit. So yes, a great book, I highly recommend it, and yeah, go enjoy it if you fancy that. I guess it's kind of like a sci-fi book, but it's also really not. It's undefinable and it's unguessable. Really enjoyed it. Give me an ego boost, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.